If you're a US citizen, you can apply for a green card for your brother or sister, and many times get your nieces and nephews in on it too. But it's a complicated and long and drawn out process, which leads to a lot of confusion and worries to see where the case is, what's going to happen next, and a lot more. I'm immigration lawyer John Khosravi of the JQK Law Corporation, where he helps families get their green cards, live in the United States. I'm going to go over the general process and highlight specific issues and problems that people have in this process so you either know it ahead of time, or if you're already in the midst of it, you're prepared for it. And if you'd like to schedule a consultation and talk in more detail with our office, just go to our website, jqqlaw.com/contact, fill in the information there, and we can have a private consultation to discuss your case. Fees do apply, but we'll tell you how much it costs and what main issues we see potentially in that reply email, and we could take it from there. So let's start. A U.S. citizen is allowed to apply for their brother or sister, known as a sibling petition. It's called the F4 preference category. There's three other preferences. These are groups. They're adult children, U.S. citizens, spouse or minor child of a green card holder, adult married child of a U.S. citizen, and F4, the fourth one, being brother and sister cases. You started by submitting Form I-130. This is a petition that says, this is my brother or my sister. Many times you need both your birth certificates to show you have the same parents. Sometimes a marriage certificate from the parents good too to show they're married and add that relationship. But that's the initial thing, plus this form that has a lot of details about their background. The day that you submit this application with USCIS Immigration Department, right now it could be by paper or online through a my.uscis.gov account, is the day where you hold your place in line. They call it the priority date. They'll be on the receipt. There'll be the receipt notice date. It'll be the same date there. Now that's your place in line, because every year they only give out a few of these green cards. By few, I mean thousands of them. But every year, once that's reached, then they won't issue any more until the next fiscal year. And as you can imagine, there's a lot of brothers and sisters out there. So it takes years and years and years, sometimes 15 to 20, most of the time 15 to 20 years for these cases to finish. And so you got to prepare for the long wait. Now, when you submit this I-130 petition, it could be approved in 6 months, a year, maybe 10 years. And it's not as important how long it takes for this to be approved. A lot of people think when it's approved, things are moving forward, or they're happy when it's approved faster. Actually, it's better that it takes longer. The longer that it takes for the I-130 to be approved, the better it is if you have nieces and nephews, because there's a complicated calculation. We have separate videos on our YouTube channel for a thing called the Child Status Protection Act, CSPA, which says that the time it takes for this initial petition, I-130, that says I have a brother and sister, the longer it takes for that to be approved, the more time you could take off the sibling's child's case. So let's say the niece or nephew, if they're under 21 when the case is ready to go to the embassy and stuff like that, then it's all good. But the kids like 24 or 25 at that point, they're too old. However, you can subtract the time it took for this I-130 petition to be approved from their age. And there's more to it. Again, it's a complicated calculation. But let's say it took 10 years for that initial case I-130 to be approved. Then the embassy portion, when it starts, they're like 25. You can subtract those 10 years from their age, making them 15, and thus potentially a part of the case if the rest of the stuff's done correctly. However, if the case took 2 years to be approved, which some people are excited about, got done fast, it's not good because their age of 25 only goes to 23. So be mindful of this that exists. But this is where it leads to number one issue that we have. Well, that Child Status Protection Act is number one you got to be mindful of. And again, this is very complicated. But number two is you got to make sure to update your address for the Form I-130 if you're the petitioner. Check your my.uscis.gov account, because sometimes the government comes back and says we need more evidence or missing something, the information not correct, and they'll give you 87 days to respond to them. And many times people have moved, they don't get the notice, and they don't know what's going on. Years later, they contact me. We do what's called the Freedom of Information Act request, FOIA request, to get a copy of their case. And the government's gotten pretty stingy on giving this information, even though it's yours, but so it's gotten more difficult, the info. But when we do get it, we realize, yeah, last year, 6 months ago, a couple years ago, the government asked for more evidence. You missed the notice because you didn't update your address or you didn't check your file. And because of that, they denied the case and just it's void now. So you have to start all over again. So that's a disaster. That's a very important and very, very important thing you got to be aware of and do these cases. Eventually you'll get approved, but then it doesn't really go anywhere because you can't move the case forward for step two, consular processing, doing the embassy work for them to get an interview until the case is current. Now, a footnote, if the family member is in the United States lawfully and they satisfy a bunch of other requirements, maybe they could do what's called adjustment of status, a green card in the U.S., but most people won't be able to do that because they haven't maintained status in the U.S., they might have violations and the like. So almost everybody doing the brother or sister case will be doing it through the embassy. And the embassy has a timeline that exists, and the timeline moves very slow. We've got to go to Google, type in Visa Bulletin, and the first website usually comes up from the Department of State. And every month, the government updates these brackets, this grid system, saying The cases that were submitted by people from this country at a certain date are the ones who are now getting their green card interviews or could get it approved. It's the first set right there. You go to F4, a row that exists on there when you go to the US visa bulletin. And that's hopefully it'll come faster, but again, it's very slow. It says the month and year, day, month, and year that the case, the priority date was submitted, and it doesn't move month to month forward. Sometimes it goes years without moving, and sometimes it jumps 4 to 8 months. So unfortunately, it's backed up. And if you're from certain countries like Philippines and Mexico, it's even longer than other countries. But eventually, when the time comes up where that's close to being current, you'll get notified by the National Visa Center. It's an agency within the Department of State. And they'll start asking you to pay their government fees, the affidavit support, your financial sponsorship documents, complete Form DS-260s for the family members. This is background information. Then also upload civil documents, birth certificates, marriage certificates, divorce certificates, police certificates, and more. And you get all this together, you submit it. Eventually, you get put in a place for a line at the U.S. Embassy that you're living in. And it depends on how long it takes. It depends on when the case comes finally current. And more importantly, these kind of cases, how long it takes for your specific embassy to schedule a time. Some are backed up. If you're in Pakistan, Nigeria, you're going to wait forever. If you're in Sweden or like France, it's going to be faster. And that's just the nature of the situation. If you're from a country that's travel ban like Iran or maybe Venezuela or stuff like that, you may not even be able to get approved. So you got to kind of stall the case to hopefully the politics of the things change and situation gets better. But that's the big picture. And at the end part, you kind of have to do a calculation around then to see if the child could be part of the case. To get a niece and nephew, because a lot of times when you're filing for brothers and sisters, they're already older. They're not that interested in immigrating per se, unless the country situations aren't good or they have better job prospects in the U.S. They do it because of the nieces and nephews, and sometimes their age gets too old and it becomes a lot of problem. Especially if one child becomes part of the case because they're young enough, but another older child can't. The family's stuck being separated. It creates a lot of problems. And add on to that is when you come to the end, sometimes the family member can't come to the United States that quickly, or it has to live in the home country for another year or two to wrap up education or work. There are things called a re-entry permit to get special permission to be outside the United States for extended periods of time. So it's very important to be mindful of that. But as soon as you get the visa, you should come to the United States to trigger the issuance of the green card and then get the re-entry permit and travel back and forth in the meantime, but get your life started here. Fortunately, it is a long and complicated system, but you got to be mindful for it. If you are getting in the problems that I mentioned, Child Status Protection Act, if you're thinking about doing adjustment of status in case in the United States, there's document issues. These are things that pop up with you don't have birth certificates and the like. The affidavit support has complications. You don't know how to show the financial support or you don't make enough. We can't help you find a joint sponsor. We can talk about what a joint sponsor look like, what assets look like, and these kind of important factors. These are things to schedule a consultation with us about to get a better understanding, and we can take it from there. Our website is jqqlaw.com/contact. That's where you can go to get things started. I wish you and your family the best.